Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the stars above for us this week. And it's quite the week. Actually, from now until the end of the year, it is quite the week. So, quite the week, quite the month, quite the summer, quite the fall and winter. Bringing 2025 to a close is more like a tenacious race, let's call it, because from here on out, it just gets a little crazier than crazy. Now, that doesn't mean that every day is crazy, crazy, but the grand scheme of things energetically are ramping up and are bringing us into new territory, territory we haven't explored yet at all. And likely, some challenging times ahead for all of us and as a group collectively, but also as individuals. But guess what? We are prepared for this. We have been working long and hard through our whole lifetimes to become more of the embodied spirit that helps us to move through these challenging times. Now, not everybody has been working that way, right? Others have been working in a completely different way. And that's okay because every soul has its reason for being here and its own plan for being here. But for those of us who have been a study in spirituality, a study in bringing in the light, that we are the ones right now that are feeling a little put upon or a little bit beaten up, if you will, but yet it's our very light that this whole world needs. So we need to keep going. We need to bring in tenacity and determination and our stubbornness, our stubborn will to survive and to thrive in a world that hopefully can get more kind, more generous, more loving. But it's going to take all of us to bring that in. Okay. I know that this weekend things were crazy in with the parade Trump was trying to have, but all of the demonstrations around the country. I had zero thought about it because I'm moving, and that's a crazy thing all in itself. And I ended up trying to make it to the Goodwill to drop off some things on Saturday and got caught up in a demonstration, a walk, if you will. People were actually in my little town on street corners with the American flag, with Mexican flags, and just people, vast numbers of people in, this valley that I live in has, I think, 130,000 people all total through all the cities in this valley. And I swear half of them were in these intersections. And I hadn't even thought about it, but it was tying up traffic and everything. So amazing to see how people are coming together, gathering in their groups. And these are sort of this is evidence of Pluto in Aquarius. So when I talk about living astrology, gosh darn, we're living it right now, watching these grassroots movements, whether they're pro something or anti something. These are people that are gathering in a grassroots sort of way, which is Pluto in Aquarius, and we get to watch it living out. Whether you're on one side or the other doesn't really matter. It's that people are making their voices heard, humanity coming together for a purpose. And it's just fascinating as an astrologer to sit back and kind of watch these things happen because we knew these things would happen. But did we know they would happen in our own neighborhoods? I don't know why I didn't think about that, but I didn't. And then here we are, having come through yesterday's Mars square Uranus, which is a very explosive and very unpredictable kind of transit. And of course, that was activated even last week with some of the things that were going on last week. It was exact yesterday, and now we're in the waning phase of that. We also had Jupiter square Saturn, the third of three of the two planets coming together. We talked a lot about that on Friday. And those two are very, very energetic, and those carry impact now all the way, into the summer. So things that were kind of stirred up during this weekend will have far-reaching consequences as we go on down through the summer. Now, today we begin with Mars at the final anaretic degree of Leo, the 29th degree. When we talk about degrees in astrology, almost every degree, even through the Sabian symbols, has a meaning, a purpose, right? But there are two degrees that are very, very important. One is the 0 degree of a sign and the 29th degree of the sign, of any sign. And here we are today with Mars now at that final degree of Leo, called the degree of fate or of urgency. And Mars is burning at full intensity here in Leo, making a kind of last ditch effort, if you will, to express itself, to perform and assert bold Leo kind of qualities out there as it gets ready this week to shift into the more earthy, grounded energy of Virgo. Actually, tomorrow it switches into the energy of Virgo. So the energy right now, today, still is fiery and dramatic and passionate, but also volatile and a little over the top, right? Some things just get a little too far. And you may feel a push in your own life to take bold action or be fearful about what bold action you must take. And yet, there's a tendency for all of us now to follow through on the creative spark that has been a part of our lives for quite a while now. And there's also this pressure. I mean, if you're feeling pressure, there's a reason why this is coming up. And that pressure can lead us to reckless actions. So we have to keep breathing. All right. So you don't take those reckless actions. We need to slow down just enough to make every action that we take count and to not fall into fear, right? That is just the not self in human design is one where we fall into old patterns or where we fall into the not self, meaning not being our true selves. And we're standing at this cosmic doorway right now. And as Mars prepares to enter Virgo tomorrow, we're moving from passion, the passion of that bold Leo fiery energy, into the precision and the detail orientation of Virgo. And that shift will shape how it is we navigate the coming solstice, right? The solstice this week on the 20th, and Mars in Virgo through at least early August. So we have this, shift going on from all of that passionate energy into the grounded expression. And you could even say this is like, time to take action, right? The action principles are stepping up and coming into play. So it's an interesting time. And Mars at 29 degrees Leo is the final act of a two-part drama that we've been involved with since last November. Right, go back in time. We get to time travel a bit today. Today, Mars is standing at 29 degrees of Leo, the final degree of the sign that's really ruled by the sun, and it's driven by purpose because of the sun, right? The sun is our purpose. But this isn't the end of just a short transit because it's the conclusion of this long and emotionally charged Mars in Leo cycle that unfolded in two major acts. And the first act was from November 3rd of 2024 until January 6th of 2025. And this is when Mars first entered Leo and began stirring those creative urges within us, right? And the identity expression being amplified because of planets that were transiting through Aries at the time, especially Chiron and Eris. And it began also stirring up this leadership energy. And how did we want to lead? Looking forward at our newly elected leaders 2 days after that Mars entered Leo to perhaps save us, save the country, right? I'm quoting that because no one can save us. We have to do that for ourselves. So nothing outside of us. But we look to our leaders as ways to be inspired, as hope for things to turn into a different path or to somehow be come better than it has been. So we were filled with hope. Some people, I was filled with dread. Some people were filled with hope. And here we are now at the end of this Mars in Leo cycle. Now, just as that Leo energy began to roar back in November, Mars stationed retrograde. Remember that? That was December 6th of 2024, pulling us back in to review our ego-driven desires, our heart's wounds, and motivations. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because anytime a planet turns retrograde, it moves that energy inward, right? It moves it toward the inner self. And the retrograde didn't finish in Leo because he retrograded back into Cancer for a bit, but its shadow still lived in the undone performance, right? Whatever it is that you were creatively inspired to start, or the idea that was seeded at that time, any unresolved passions and any stalled momentum came out in frustration, likely because at that point in time, Mars moved backwards. And when a planet moves backwards, it kind of stalls all of the forward momentum. And then not only did he move backwards, he also moved backwards into Cancer. Now, Act Two. Act Two was Mars returning to Leo with unfinished business. And this was from April 18th until tomorrow, right? So we have this, 3-month period of time. And this is our chance now to take bolder action these last couple of months, speak from the heart, and finally step into the spotlight with integrity. Remember, his retrograde cycle ended February 23rd, and that was at 17 of Cancer. And then he slowly moves forward into Leo once more, and that was on the April 18th. So this second pass of Mars in Leo has been about reclaiming our creative power and trusting our worth and our value and learning what it really means to lead with our hearts and not our egos, especially as we watch the very egoic patterns of people in our outer worlds, right? And I mean, we all have egos. I'm not saying the ego is bad. By no means am I saying that. But when we are watching things unfold based on someone's ego versus someone's heart, you can tell the difference. And that should have also been a call for each one of us. Where are we leading with heart, or where are we leading with ego? And leading doesn't mean that you have to be in an elevated position of leadership, right? We're all leaders in our lives in one way or another. So the 29th degree, now going back to where we are today, is this flame before the shift into Earth. And it's at maximum Leo intensity, right? That's what the 29th degree is. It takes all of that energy of the sign, whatever sign it was, this one happens to be Leo, and magnifies it, amplifies it, pressurizes it, right? And makes us take this look backward at, well, how far have we come? Where are we going? That type of thing. What have we learned? This is the integration point as well. What have we learned about courage? What have we learned about pride? What have we learned about authenticity, being in your own authority and using your own voice and being seen, right? Hard for some of us with 12th house planets, right? Because we have to be seen and we have to get out. Sometimes we have to get out of our own way in order to really show up. It is also a place of release, right? Release. And here we got to think about what drama or what attachment or what kind of pattern is it that you're finally done with, that you're just like, I'm done. I'm letting go of this pattern. And then the next thing is commitment, right? 29th degree brings us to a question. Are you ready to carry forward what's real, what's yours, what's passionate, and leave behind what was only for show or what was only superficial, right? What's the most important thing now that you want to move forward with? So this is the final curtain call, if you will, of Mars in Leo, a last burst of fire and flame to claim our purpose before the season of practical magic happens, which starts tomorrow with Mars in Virgo, or when Mars in Virgo begins. So, big day for us today as we sit at this bridge, the 29th degree. I showed it in this chart. I'm not going to put this one on the screen, but here we have Mars at 2939. I think that says 2935. And tomorrow he'll be at 0 degrees of Virgo. And of course, he is making quite a few, just look at all those lines that come out from Mars here. So that tells you that it's lighting up the chart. And this is just the chart of the moment. This is a chart I draw up in the mornings that just shows us where planets are at this minute. But if you think about this in your own chart, all of those connections are making connections to something in your chart as well. Now, wherever Leo is in your personal chart is where you're feeling this the most, right? This is where it's kind of pointed at. And in this particular chart, Leo sits in the second house. So this, if we're a person, the Leo energy would have been moving through the house of self-worth and confidence and money and earning power and value, right? And resources. What do you have at your fingertips to be able to help you live your life in a very heart-centered way? And now that energy is going to shift out of that particular house. It's like taking all the lessons of Leo in that whatever house it is in your chart, second house from this one, and then putting it into the next house and to the next sign with Virgo there. So taking all of that passion and putting it to work, right? That's what it looks like, and putting it to work in a way that is more strategic, perhaps. Mars loves strategy. Putting it to work in a way that's more grounded, more practical, and moving it forward now. This is the actual action, right? The action steps that you can take to move forward. Okay, so let's say good morning real quickly to people out there. Good morning, Debbie Tibbetts-Tumiel. I saw you out there first this morning. And then Julie, good morning to you. Amy D, good morning. Joan Durchie, good morning. Teddy, good morning. Glad grassroots still survives. We have a voice. Yes, we do. And it was very loud in the town. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it was in Burlington where you live. I was in Burlington, and what a crazy place. Catherine, good morning to you. Pam Z, good morning, and thank you very much for the birthday wishes, everybody. My 64th birthday is on the 19th. 64, as it turns out, happens to be a magic age. I had no idea until I decided to have a reading by another astrologer, and I had no clue that 64 was so magical, because what happens is the inner planets all come back not just to their same signs that they were in, but to the same phases that they were in at your birth. This happens at age 64 and age 32. So it's like, fresh starts piled on top of one another. And here I am at this point in my life, moving, downsizing even, to be able to accomplish this move. It's kind of an interesting thing that, we always say that about 30 to 45 days before your birthday, you really start to feel all that energy building up. And indeed, for me, it was exactly that. And then, of course, the next 20 days after your birthday kind of seals that deal and, really starts to see you move in the direction of that solar return. So thank you, guys. Nicole Markham, good to see you with us this morning. Alana, good morning to you. Good to have you with us. And anybody else out there, because sometimes I see numbers, but I don't see all of the people. So welcome to the show if this is your first time being here. The good thing about doing a broadcast like this on StreamYard is that it goes out to Facebook and it goes out to my YouTube channel. So if you missed the beginning part of the show, you can always re-listen, right? Either in YouTube or on Facebook, the Living Astrology Facebook page. So there we have that. Now, let's go a little bit to the next step with Mars and look at what Mars will bring us in Virgo, because here we have precision and purpose, right? Everything becomes a little more practical and it grounded, right? Grounded. And Mars will be in Virgo from June 17th until August 6th. So that takes up a good chunk of the next of the summer, actually. And we're going to look at the summer solstice chart here today, and I think you're going to be amazed at what you see. And the core themes of Mars in Virgo is about productive action. Productive action, right? Moving. So you got to get your feet moving. It is about refinement. Virgo is a sign of refining and purifying and distilling down into its most important parts. It's that kind of sign. It's a healing sign as well. So there's healing energy available. So if you've had issues with taking action, Mars here might help with the healing and help you to take those next steps forward. It is a sign of service, right? And by the way, with the healing, it's also your own personal health and well being. So now we have Mars here. Mars might be pointing out where healing needs to take place in your own well being, for your own well being, right? Where you need to purify, detoxify, that type of thing. There's also discernment here. Virgo is a discerning sign. Discernment would be the middle ground, right, between being slobbish on the one end and being persnickety or uber nitpicky on the other side, right? So discernment here on what actions to take, on what to say, on what to do, on what to keep, on what to throw, right? So discernment, big word here. And also taking on this sort of a fix it attitude rather than, you know, giving up, which happens, or going all out to have other people try to help you fix it yourself, right? Take a DIY kind of attitude, a do it yourself attitude. And there will be tension here because there's tension between perfectionism with Virgo and progress, right? Sometimes we get stalled with Virgo energy because we're so busy nitpicking and perfecting and, redoing, re-proofreading, re-editing, that we get stuck before we actually take that next step. So we'll be kind of prompted here to take that next step. That is the big deal. So, what this energy invites us to do, and I want you to think about where Virgo is. What house is Virgo in your chart? Because that's going to be the area of life where things start to get, where they need to get more perfected, where the self expression energy from Leo needs to find its space to actually be worked upon, right? So, Virgo. And get your systems in order, right? Mars and Virgo loves those efficient routines and clear plans and strategies and cleaned up spaces. And this is the time to streamline everything in your life, your calendar, your diet, your work, your methods of doing things, your wellness habits, right? Everything to do with Virgo energy can be streamlined at this point in time. And that means we want to focus on the details. When Mars was in Leo, it was the bigger picture. And now we have to take and look at the details. Like if we had this big dream over here of saying or doing or being something, to express our passion with Mars when he was in Leo, now we have to actually take the steps, which means we have to have the plan, which means we need to have a little strategy involved in what it is we do now. And the editing, the revising, the reworking, the reforming, all of that, happening with Mars in Virgo now. Anything that improves functionality is supported while Mars is in Virgo. So take a practical action toward healing something in your life. Virgo kind of governs the body and the mind, the health of the body and the mind. And we can prioritize mental clarity. Remember, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So Mercury and Mars are in this little confab, for these next 6 weeks or so. So nutritional care, exercise, therapy, all of those things are very advantageous for us during these next few weeks. And the energy goes where our attention flows. So pour into what needs genuine fixing and not obsessive control over something, right? So be very circumspect about what it is that you're pouring your energy into. Is it something that is really, are the steps that you're going to take really going to lead you to what you desire, what your plan has been, or what your goals have been? Or is it distractions, right? Taking you away from action steps that would actually propel you forward with that Virgo practical action. So here are some shadow things to watch out for while Mars is transiting through Virgo. Overthinking and nitpicking. right? These are two big things. It's Mercury ruled, as I said, so we have thinking energy here. So overthinking or nitpicking, because Mars can sort of get hung up here on the details and the details of what's not working versus what is working, right? And adding to what's working. Now, it's okay to focus on, okay, this isn't working. So now how do I take steps to fix that? How do I move that forward rather than staying stuck in the it's not working? It's not working, right? We got to do something about the it's not working. There's also the possibility of burnout from over functioning in the systems, right? You may feel pulled to do it all, right? I am feeling that myself at this point because I have so much to do. And especially when it's in service to others. Like I'm pulled right now between handling everything for the membership, all of the things that I want to create for that, and actually doing the work that's going to get me out of this house by the end of the week and into my new one. Right? It's a push and a pull. We all have this sort of action thing happening in our lives, maybe somewhere. So we have to balance ourselves between the different parts of our lives, but we also have to balance the effort that we're taking to do these things with rest and self care, right? Lest we lead ourselves into burnout from overdoing, overstimulating, over functioning, that kind of thing. Now, there can also be somatic stress. And what somatic stress is pressure that's put on our nervous systems. And the nervous system, when it gets overfired, can cause us to not sleep very well. So the Virgo's link to through Mercury, because Mercury rules the nervous system. So Virgo's link to Mercury's nervous system rulership can mean that stress might show up as, stomach issues, gut issues, right? And not digesting well. Virgo rules the digestive system. Headaches, maybe, or tight shoulders, right? Where we've been holding ourselves too rigid and too tight. So, this will be a real call for us to pay attention to our bodies, right? Pay attention to the signs and the signals that our body is giving us. So, what are some tips to get you through these next 6 weeks? Well, first, set achievable goals and checkpoints. Think sprints, not marathons, right? If you like today, I told my husband as he left for work, I have this like pantry outside. I'm going to focus on that, getting that broken down and packed up and moved over to the new house. It's a step, right? One thing that I can do in the mass of things that need to be done, because otherwise I'll find myself, and I don't know if you guys do this, but when I have overwhelm or too many things to do, I dabble here, then I dabble there, then I dabble here, then I go back to there. And in the end, not much has gotten done, right? Because I'm dabbling instead of actually doing the work. So try to, set an achievable goal, one step, right? When that step's done, then you could go to the next step and so on. Make lists, not ultimatums. For those of you who have an open root center in your human design, lists are anathema for you, right? They are problematic because you can keep adding to that list, right? Rather than, checking things off and getting done and saying, yes, I'm now done. You just keep adding to the list, right? Because the open root center has no real tell about what the stopping point should be, right? There's a lot of stress there. So make a list, but those lists are not ultimatums, right? Clarity is empowering. I have these, and these things to get done. But rigidity in, doing those things in a specific way or trying to get them all done in one day is draining. So avoid doing that level of work. Take action towards being in service. There is this need that we feel in Virgo to help one another, but help in tangible ways, right? Don't sacrifice your own well being to help other people. Move your body intentionally. Do stretches or do yoga or walk or do Pilates or things, that support the body in motion. Stretching routines really help. And it helps because it helps move Mars energy out of the body. So gardening, walking, doing, physical exercises can really help drain some of that energy without frying your circuits, which Sometimes, when we're just doing, we fry our circuits, right? So be careful with that. Now, the bigger picture of Mars in Virgo for the summer. This Mars transit will activate a yod in the summer solstice chart, which we are going to take a look at today because the summer solstice is just a few days away from here. And a yod is always very tension filled, right? The parts of the yod, they're just not they don't work well together. They don't play well. They don't see eye to eye. In fact, they're just like speaking, Arabic over here and English, and you can't understand one another, right? So you have to be able to adjust, right? You have to do something to be able to adjust those energies. So it will be making precise and purposeful actions kind of pressurized for us, but also then could lead us to revolutionary change or evolutionary change in our lives. So we're being asked to not just act and act for the sake of action, but to act with wisdom and integrity and also with clarity, purposeful, right? Purposeful action. And yet, that the yod to Mars isn't the only one for the summer solstice. We have another interlocking yod that is happening for the summer solstice. But before I get there, we also have another aspect to take a look at, and that is Jupiter in Cancer squaring Neptune in Aries. So remember, over the weekend, Jupiter squared Saturn. Well, Saturn and Neptune are only a degree apart. So, of course, a day or so later, we come to the square to Jupiter, and that actually happens in exactitude on the 18th, so Wednesday. And oh, that's the day of the Jupiter Cancer webinar, by the way. So let me segue into that. If you have not signed up for that yet, please go take a minute and sign up for the Jupiter in Cancer webinar. It will be on Wednesday at noon, my time, Pacific time, 3 p.m. East Coast time then. But it's also recorded. So if you can't see it live, there's no problem. You can get the recording. Everybody who buys the webinar gets the recording, and it's $22. And hold on here while I go get, God, that link is just not in my head, but I'll get that before the show is over here today. And or Asa, if you happen to, I saw you out there. Thank you for joining us. If you happen to know what the link is for people to join the Jupiter in Cancer webinar on Wednesday, could you please pop it in the chat for everybody? But in the meantime, let's talk about Jupiter in Cancer, newly in Cancer, and it's square to Neptune in Aries. This is the heart's vision, meeting up with this fire of illusion, right? Neptune and fire, Aries, illusions taking on, some major proportions, but also heart energy, right? Jupiter in Cancer is, a heart flame. And that vision that we have from the heart, when matched with passion, matched with fire, can bring dreams to life, right? Bring our uh, innermost desires out to the world, right? So the core themes of this square, so remember, squares are tension, right? And the tension isn't about harming us or making us feel bad. It's about the impetus for us to move forward, right? To change. It's like the poke in the side that says, get going, right? But the core theme here will be about emotional expansion, Jupiter and Cancer, versus spiritual overwhelm, which can be Neptune in Aries, right? In the fire. It's also about compassionate ideals versus impulsive dreams. And then maybe this square brings up a test of faith for all of us, right? For each of us individually in our own lives, depending on where Cancer is and where Aries is in your chart. It would be the other way, Aries and then Jupiter. It might be a test of discernment for you to really tease through what's the most important thing. And also emotional maturity. This whole time, Jupiter will be in Cancer from, June 9th when he first moved in there until next year, June 25th, I believe it is, when he moves into Leo. So of 2026, right? So a whole year's worth of energy of Jupiter in Cancer. So emotional themes are on the uppermost part of our minds. And then let's look at that as a backdrop now to what was going on yesterday, where Mars in Leo was squaring Uranus and Taurus, right? Because that's a very big deal. That brought us perhaps explosive shifts in values and personal drive. And that was over the course of time, not just yesterday, but yesterday it was exact. As well, Jupiter in Cancer yesterday squared Saturn in Aries, and Aries right now home to both Saturn and Neptune. And this is where expansion, Jupiter, met boundaries, Saturn, asking what's worth building, right? What's worth building? What's worth taking into the future? What's worth sticking with and going through the process to get to an end result. Now, Jupiter squares Neptune. And it's completing this sort of spiritual trial by fire triangle that the cosmos is asking us to grow. Can we grow without escaping? Like, can we grow without like escaping into the dream world? And can we believe without bypassing? Can we have faith, in other words, that even though the world is tricky and looks bizarre and things are upset and upside down in our personal lives and all of that, do we can we still have faith? And can we still believe in the goodness of the world, in the goodness of people in the world, the goodness of life in the world? So, what this transit really invites us to have is this big heart energy, right? This heart area of your body, very much huge at this point in time. Jupiter in Cancer seeks to belong. It seeks safety and nourishment, and the dreams that would support the emotional body. Right? This is all very emotional energy. And then we might also have some, visionary surges in our own energy fields where, because Neptune and Aries can bring very inspired action downloads, right, from on high. But the pace can be pretty dizzying and very ungrounded because it's Aries, it's new, it's youthful, it's dynamic, but it's not grounded. Right. So hopefully the Jupiter square will cause us to, be more aligned with our heart as opposed to just, these fly by night ideas. Mars being in Virgo will also be very helpful for getting some of those idea things into reality. But our idealism also gets tested during this kind of a square. We may feel called to kind of do the savior martyr thing, the rescue, heal, or escape, right? But be mindful because every savior complex or emotional high has a shadow, right? There's something that you're giving up for that, right? So we want to have these idealism is a good thing to have, and our idealistic tendencies are really good unless we live too far into that idealism and never really ground any of the ideas into reality, right? That's what's needed. So we have to watch for a few things as we go through this week. One, emotional confusion or disillusionment. We might question what's true or what feels foggy about our path. We might have to face that down. What feels foggy about my future? What doesn't feel clear? What feels like just out of touch, just out of reach? And then that might be a problem because we may have inflated expectations too, especially in relationships, our home life, cancer related themes, spiritual pursuits, Aries pursuits, how far, how fast can you go? Right? That those unexpected or excuse me, inflated expectations can cause us to like crash and burn, right? So be careful with that. There may also be a sense out in the world that people are being passive aggressive right now or martyring themselves, right? Or you might feel like you're being passive aggressive or martyring yourself in this way. And it might be a sign that you're overgiving or that you're over dreaming without any clear action plan. And remember, we need the action plan now. We have to be able to put our feet on the ground and move forward. So, ground your beliefs in reality. Do journaling, check the facts, fact check. Stay hydrated, stay nourished, spiritually and physically, right? You're a holistic being, so all of the levels of self need to be cared for. That's spiritual, but also mental and physical and emotional, right? All of that needs to be taken care of. Use discernment with spiritual input. Slow down if you're overwhelmed, because the messages and the signs and the dreams and all of that can totally be misinterpreted if you're going too fast. So slow down. You're going too fast means take a look at all those signs, any symbols that are coming up, and pay attention, but sit with them for a bit before you leap at something about that. Not everything also needs to be interpreted in this moment, right? The sign might be something that is, guiding your future steps, not necessarily this moment's steps. Stay heart centered, right? Try not to get, too far from the heart. Compassion is powerful, right? But compassion with boundaries is revolutionary, right? Compassion, right? Not over serving from your heart of compassion, but serving in the right amount from your compassion. Now, Jupiter plus Neptune plus Mars here is a cauldron of change. There is just so much change energy here. Mars will soon trigger this square by aspecting both Jupiter and Neptune in the summer solstice yod, which I'm going to show you on the screen here in just a moment. And this will bring real world transformation, albeit not necessarily pretty, right? Not necessarily pretty at all. But this square acts as a test of the dream, right? Does it have legs? Does it have any kind of foundation that can support it moving forward? And, now with Mars in Virgo, it'll be saying, make it real. If it's worth it, if it stands the test of time, then, or if you believe it stands the test of time, it's time to take the action on it. All right. Uh, okay. Uh, Nancy Ross, good morning. And Asa, thank you very much. She'll get that link for us and put it up for the Jupiter and Cancer webinar, which is on Wednesday at noon with Tam Vayu of the Energy Almanac and me, the two owners now of the Energy Almanac, or I'm involved with that Energy Almanac in a very deep way these days. Okay. Let's go on to the summer solstice, shall we? Because that's the next big news of the week. And here's where I'm actually going to show you the chart and make it a little bigger there. I know it looks like a mess. To me, it looks like a mess. To you guys, it must look really, really like a mess. But here's the key. First of all, let's talk about the solstice chart. Why do I do a solstice chart or an equinox chart or an Aries ingress chart, right? Why do I do all that? Well, each year, when the sun moves into the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, um, Virgo, or not Virgo, Libra, and Capricorn, we change seasons, right? And those seasonal changes bring us to a new energy. And if we draw up a chart for that moment that the sun moves into one of those cardinal signs, we end up with an idea of where the energies are leading us for that season, right? For that 3-month period of time. Now, every year at the summer solstice, it's when the sun crosses into Cancer. In the northern hemisphere, that makes the longest day of the year, or the longest day of light, right? Light. I went to bed at 10:20 last night. It was still light. I mean, I could see everything out there. It was just, it happens here in the Pacific Northwest, any of the northern hemisphere, the northernmost states, Canada, Alaska. We have these long, very long days, and this is a turning point in the solar cycle, right? Where we're it's not just a symbolic kind of turning point, it's an actual astrological turning point where the sun moves into 0 degrees of Cancer. Somehow, when I put the timing in, it's at 29:59, one like second away from Cancer, but it should be here in Cancer. And when we cast a chart for that exact moment, what we do is we get an ingress chart. Ingress meaning moving into movement of a chart. And it gives us a snapshot of the cosmic energies then that influence the entire season to come. And in this chart, or in this way, it acts like a birth chart, right? You have a birth chart every year when it's your birthday. That snapshot tells us like what kind of energies are you looking at ahead of you for the year. This is a seasonal birth chart that really defines the tone, the themes, the challenges, and the gifts and the opportunities for the next 3 months, right, of the season. In mundane astrology, which is astrology of world events, we can forecast the collective energy and the societal shifts by pulling up a seasonal chart, right? So it's worth it to do because it reveals to us the power centers through the planetary configurations, right? What are the planets doing? What houses are they in of the bigger, wider chart? And then the aspect patterns that are present, like the interlocking yods that we see here. So these green lines, here's one yod. Oh gosh, I always forget. You guys can't see my cursor, and that pisses me off. But here's Mars is up in the upper right corner at one point of the green lines. You see them all focusing toward Mars. And at the base of that, we have Pluto on one side on the 9 o'clock position of the chart, and then the Saturn Neptune conjunction at the sextile point down there. So we have this funnel yod, right, pushing us toward Mars in Virgo, no less. Then there's a second yod that is interlocked with this one, and that's you'll see here again. Mars is involved, and this time Jupiter and the Sun in a conjunction at the summer solstice, and they're pointed toward Pluto over here again at the 9 o'clock position. This is no, if you are squeamish, this is not for the faint of heart, right? These are very powerful configurations that denote challenges, right? Challenges. A need for us to open a new chapter in the cosmic story, and it's sort of a new plot line that we're stepping into, right? Because of the seasonal shift. Now, let's deal with these individual yods because, you know, a yod is what we call the finger of God aspect. It's very energetic and it is one that just takes no prisoners kind of thing. It forces us through like the eye of a needle kind of feeling. And the first yod is between um, Pluto in Aquarius to Mars in Virgo, and then from Mars in Virgo to Saturn, Neptune in Aries. So the two in conjuncts are the long legs here, right? This one on the top and this one down here on the other side. And then we have the connector between Pluto and Saturn, Neptune, which are in a sextile. The sextile forms the basis for what could be really good energy. It's sort of the support for this point that's leading to Mars as the nozzle or the release point, if you will. Now, what this means, the yod funnels intense collective pressure, the Pluto and Saturn Neptune base, into precise, grounded action, right? Mars in Virgo. And then Pluto in Aquarius wants deep reform. It is innovative and it's bringing up radical truth. It's excavating all the dark undersides of things and bringing it to the light, and even like the negative parts of people's personalities, if you want to bring it personal, or the negative aspects of a government, such as what we're seeing in different countries around the world at this point in time. And yet there's also the potential for innovation in Aquarius, right? If we move to the future, we can innovate, we can turn the challenges into something positive, and it happens when we're willing to face the radical truth. So Pluto in Aquarius there. And then Saturn and Neptune down here in Aries asks for spiritual structure, boundaries that are around inspiration, right? We can't be inspired by everything. We have to have certain inspiration that we can take action on. And it is also about fierce compassion. I think the rising up of people in these grassroots movements that we see in response to immigration issues are very indicative of compassion rising up through the human family at this point in time. Recognizing that change is necessary, but do we have to go about it in such a horrible and horrendous way? I don't know, right? But this is the thing we're grappling with here. So, together in this yod, we're pushing energy toward Mars and Virgo. So, we're really demanding disciplined service, clear strategy, and healing through action, right? Not just hemming and hawing around, but actually taking action. The tension is that Mars may feel overwhelmed by the complexity of the mission. And certainly, if we just look at one little piece and call it immigration right now, that is a very complex issue in this country, the USA. I don't know if it's affecting other countries, but I bet it is because it's a sort of cultural and collective theme. But it's only the outlet. Mars isn't the mission, it's the outlet for the energies that Pluto and Saturn Aries are holding. So the yod says you must act, but your actions have to be healing, right? They have to be able to support compassion. It has to be able to support well-being, not just for us here, say in the USA, but even for the people that are being ejected out of the country, right? Compassion, heart, soul, they are people. And that yod is activated throughout the whole of the summer, right? Because it's beginning at the summer solstice. Now, the second yod is pointed at Pluto, right? The release point, the nozzle point is at Pluto over here on the left 9 o'clock position of the chart. And its base is formed by Mars in Virgo and the Sun and Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. So we have this very nurturing energy and this very pragmatic, purposeful energy holding the base, and the point, the yod, being released through Pluto in Aquarius. So, what it means is that the yod here really shows emotional generosity or the need for it and helpful effort, right? Mars in Virgo, helpful effort. And it's funneling toward this deep structural transformation that's happening in our institutions, in our world at large, in our governments, all of the structure of the government, and what have you. But there's this powerful tension. And the tension that we're holding here is between nurturing energy, loving energy, heart energy, and revolution, right? They're like at opposite ends of the spectrum here. And it's Pluto who says, burn what no longer serves, burn it down if necessary, right? Let it go, get it, gone. So the message here, even even our with our most compassionate and helpful instincts and where they are at this point in time, they have to evolve. We have to evolve our compassion. And Pluto demands evolution, not perfection, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect yet, but we have to evolve toward more compassion and love, unconditional love, right? Which also means themes like tolerance and inclusion are themes that we have to take up, right? That we have to, move to the forefront of our living at this point in time and not put them in the back seat while we, rid ourselves of unwanted and undesirables and things like that, right? We've heard those words used by people in power in our government. We don't need that kind of attitude. What we need is a loving attitude, even while we take the steps that we need to take to right a situation that's kind of been out of control. It's possible. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? But the will, I think, has been missing as a spirit of meanness, and anti generosity has been pretty prominent in the world. You can see it in your own, individual lives as well. Now, another kind of exciting thing about the summer solstice is we see the first inklings of the minor grand trine that I told you all about in the Astrology of 2025 workshop way back in December, right? I saw this thing building up, and this build up is now here. It's in the summer, right? And the things here in pink on the chart are where the minor grand trine is located. A minor grand trine is made up of two planets that are trine one another, and then those two planets sextile to another planet or planets. It can be more than one planet at each point, and in fact, it is. The minor grand trine is a trine between Pluto and Uranus that is now at 29 degrees of Taurus and ready to move into Gemini. And then the point of that, the sextile points to Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So if you just follow the pink lines here, you'll see where that's playing out. And this is a kind of major earth, air, fire kind of activation with some very karmic overtones, right? This is not just like la-di-da kind of aspect. This is karmic, and that means it holds a lot of power. Pluto in Aquarius as the transformer, Uranus at 29 Taurus right now, the disruptor at the karmic completion degree in Taurus, and then the Saturn Neptune in Aries, sort of the dream architects of the future here, they're forming this web of dynamic change potential. It's not quite ready to be birthed yet. It's in process, like we're in labor here, guys. This is the labor of new birth. And Uranus at 29 degrees Taurus, right? This, I even though it's an out of sign sextile, because it more appropriately needs to be in Gemini to have, the air balanced, but it's at 29 degrees. I'm not going to ignore it, right? And it's especially volatile here and revolutionary here and disruptive and sort of, leading us to this awakening. Something's rotten in Denmark. We need to wake up, smell the coffee, do something about it. And it shifts what it is that we hold in our lives as security. This is Taurus energy. 29 Taurus. What do we need to shift? What is security? What does that mean to us? And what shift is it that we need to hold in order to be secure? And also, there's sudden awakenings here, right? These things that happen out of the blue, like, I would say Israel bombing Iran's nuclear facilities, kind of being a shock, right? That I mean, I think in our minds we always knew it could happen, but did we know it would? That Israel would actually take that step? I don't know, right? But it's that kind of thing that awakens something within us. It disrupts our values. It disrupts the pattern. So we have that as a part of this. And yet, this pattern gives us this ease and flow between transformation, disruption, and spiritual structuring. So, how do we structure the new? Well, we do that based on spiritual concepts, right? And it's not passive energy, right? This really isn't passive. It needs engagement. We need to take action. It asks us to ride sort of the lightning without trying to control the storm, right? So we have to go. There's just no way to go through this, right? If you live in the south somewhere and you have a hurricane bearing down on you and you choose to stay rather than evacuate, there is nothing else you can do except ride out the storm, right? That's what this is. We can't change anything here except our own reactions, our own responses to these changes that are coming our way. So while there's this flowing energy here, that it could also bring us sometimes to this, choice point where we have to make a choice about riding the lightning, riding out the storm, or giving up, right? That's kind of our choice. Now, we also have another interesting thing that I saw, and it's down here in Taurus as well, with the moon having just entered Taurus at 0 degrees, another karmic degree, and then Venus at 15 degrees of Taurus, and then Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. Like they're spread out 15 degrees apart, and kind of each anchoring a portion of if you broke the sign up into thirds, right, which we call them decants. Just went out of my head. Decans, Decans. Then each planet, the moon, Venus, and and Uranus, they're holding or anchoring each point in the decans. And here with the moon at Taurus, the emotional body enters into this very physical Taurian energy and starts a new cycle around embodiment and values and safety and self worth and all of that. Venus at 15 degrees makes the heart rooted in simplicity and love and senses, right? The very physical senses. It's feminine energy, it's fertile energy, and it's very sensual. And then Uranus at 29 Taurus is cracking open the old, right? The old attachments, shaking our foundations, possibly literally, and especially in how we relate to money or pleasure, emotional grounding, safety, security. If I go out into the mundane world, agriculture, how we grow food, all of that. And what's interesting here is that this trio sort of offers us a story arc across the sign of Taurus, where the moon is the emotional reset, right? The 0 degrees. Venus is about what we value and how we relate to one another. And then Uranus, what we must revolutionize or release in order to move into that next energy. It's a sort of grounded but awakening force in the summer solstice chart. And it amplifies the solstice's theme of embodied change. And if you're not listening to your body now, you'll feel it later, right? Listen now so that you don't get into pain later on. Then, just quick, we also have Jupiter and the Sun in the solstice chart coming into conjunction. And this is illuminating the heart's wisdom. I think this is helping us to turn more to that compassion, that soul, that unconditional love energy. And it is a delightful energy to have in the mix of all of this other energy that is occurring. And it's emotional intelligence, right? We're greeting the world, learning to greet the world with emotional intelligence. And then there's this second minor grand trine that's occurring here, and it happens between Chiron Eris, or excuse me, not Chiron Eris, from the moon in Taurus to Mars, and then to the sun and Jupiter. And this is a beautiful kind of minor grand trine where it offers this graceful channel for us to, um, move with the mind, the moon, the heart, the soul, and all of that together. The core of our life force, being gentled, as it were, and all of this through earth and water signs. And it's a very tangible and supportive kind of aspect pattern, I think, to have in a season, kind of helping to maybe gentle the other crazy kinds of things that are happening in this chart. So there you have it. We have a big week on tap, and there's a lot of things there for us to be aware of. Asa, did you ever find that link? Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Um, Awesome special offers. No, that's not it. Oh, hey, maybe if I do this, choose doo-doo, pages bonus. Nope, that's not cart. Let's go here. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Now I can give you this. The webinar is $22, and of course, it's recorded, so you can also um, listen to it later. And there's the link. It is now in the chat, and I'll actually show it for those of you in YouTube. You'll see it on the chart. There we go. All right. I know we're over time, guys, so I won't have time necessarily to draw a card. Please take care. Have a great week. I know that was a lot to throw at you. I will be on air on Friday this week. I am not sure that I'll make it next Monday. We'll see if I have internet set up over in my new place. Hopefully, lots of changes coming. Take care, everyone. Much love to you all. Bye for now.